Good agricultural practices will result in the harvesting of quality cherry, which in turn calls for good manufacturing practices. Coffee processing involves a series of stages, each with a distinct purpose. All this constitutes a major activity in the coffee value chain.
Coffee processing is a procedure whereby coffee from the farmer undergoes the process of skin removal to achieve parchment coffee.
Basically, there are two methods of coffee processing, namely the wet and dry methods respectively. Of the two, the wet method gives better quality and is therefore preferred for use in Kenya. There are several stages to consider in the wet processing method. These are cherry picking, cherry sorting, pulping, pre-grading, fermentation, underwater soaking, final washing, and final grading. At the picking stages, only red, ripe cherry should be picked. Picking containers should be cleaned to avoid contamination. Fallen cherries should not be picked from the ground. Protect the picked cherry from intense heat by keeping it under shade. At the sorting stage, harvested cherries should be sorted prior to pulping. This helps remove immature, overripe and dry berries, leaves, twigs and any other foreign materials.
The farmer is the first inspector of his own cherry. Once it's picked from the tree, he sorts the coffee at home. Then it comes to the factory. It is done another inspection by the factory manager. If there are defects found or underripes or green coffees found or other foreign materials, they are normally removed at the sorting stage.
To avoid contamination, it is advisable to carry out sorting on a concrete floor or canvas. Cherry is pulped the same day it is picked. It is important to adjust machinery to avoid nipping of parchment, as it may result in mold growth.
When the coffee has been brought to the factory, mainly it's sorted and what is noted first by the factory manager so as to advise the machine operator is the size of the bean, so that when the coffee comes to the machine, the discs here, it's not going to be nipped or crushed. We therefore advise the machine operator to use a standard method of setting his machine, just as it's going to be demonstrated here. So you can set the machine, this machine operator, he's going to use a pen which is more or less the size of a bean, and this one is going to tell us the distance between the breast and the prow. Now here, it has to move freely, but at least touching slightly on the disc. This one he is using it to see the distance, whether it is it's at the right distance. And these two settings are just very okay with the factory manager, because he doesn't need to use very expensive equipment to do that. They are standard. He can use a vernier caliper, which he doesn't have, or other methods which are expensive, but these are normally the ones which are used. And actually we can see him demonstrating how he does it. Please, can you do that? Yeah? You can see now that is how he does it. He has to fill the gap. Now he is sure, goes through all the disc like that. Then he tests again. He sees they are actually okay. Once they are okay, then yeah, okay. Yeah, you feel that it moves freely, but slightly touching the disc. That is actually a standard method. Then what he's going to do is to return the covers. Return the covers so that when the machine is pulping, the beans or the pulp does not spill over. It's supposed to come in a standard format. Most machines have got either 2 disc, 3 disc or 4 disc. It does the pulping. And one disc does 1,000 kgs per hour of cherry.
During this primary processing, when after now the farmers have picked the coffee for the small and medium estates, well, they can use either this one disc pulping machine, or we have another kind which is we normally call them drum pulping machine, which is either motorized or manually operated.
Delayed pulping causes premature fermentation, hence foxy beans which lower the quality. To avoid loss of beans, the disc pulper should completely separate the pulp from the parchment.
The pulping machine does the removal of the coffee pulp, the skin, and it is enhanced by a flow of water.
Pre-grading separates parchment into 3 categories, namely P1, P2 and lights. This facilitates uniform fermentation.
There's many products come like this to the repasser finish. Let's go to the repasser there.
Fermentation is the process of breaking down the thick mucilage layer on the parchment into simple, non-sticky washable substances.
Fermentation is a process of mucilage removal.
The fermentation periods depends on the prevailing weather conditions. It is deemed complete if parchment feels gritty when rubbed between fingers. This can be verified by washing a few handfuls of parchment in a bowl of water and rubbing between fingers. The dry fermentation coupled with underwater soaking for between 16 and 24 hours are termed as the 2-stage fermentation procedures which improve coffee quality. Over-fermentation should be avoided as it may lead to formation of stinkers. The depth of parchment in fermentation tanks should not exceed 1 meter.
During pulping, in this wet processing method, those farmers who don't have facilities of the fermentation tanks and their alternative is to use the drum, the plastic drums for fermentation purposes, they are supposed to put it 3/4 full for easier turning of the coffee during first washing and second washing.
The optimum conditions for dry fermentation are parchment pH 5.5 to 6.1 with temperatures of 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. The process must be completed before the start of the underwater soaking stage.
P2 and P8 go directly to the skin drying table. The P1 can be subjected to soaking. You soak that coffee. Why do we have to subject the P2 to skin drying? Directly to skin drying, because if you have too much of P1 coffee, there's no need of actually soaking the two because of maybe of space.
Soaking improves parchment color by soaking away the browning agents. In the event of persistent browning, sodium bisulfate comes in handy. Soaking loosens the silver skin so that it is easily removable during milling and polishing. This improves the green coffee appearance. It also eases factory pressure where there is no space on the drying tables. Before drying, the final washing and grading is done to remove any dirt or mucilage remains. Grading water should be clean and free from biological, chemical or other contaminants. Parchment is pushed against a stream of water to clean it before grading. It is graded on the basis of density into parchment grades 1, 2, 3 and lights. At this stage, personal hygiene is always important as parchment is known to pick foreign odors which are detectable in the cup.
First stage is you put 2 gates, which actually enhances the storage of that coffee for a short while, whereby it is going to be shaken using rados. Once it is shaken, then the mucilage is, that bit now is washing. The whole channel must be fitted with the gates. They are called gates or weighers, whereby these are grading gates. Once you release the first, the top gate, because they are normally 10 centimeters, you remove one, then the lighter coffee flows out and moves along to meet the other gates. Once you have done that, you remove another one, the lower one, which now holds the best coffee. That way the coffee will flow and then push the coffee which is even lighter further down the other gate. Once it has reached the second gate, you open that one to release now the coffee which is much lighter, because all of this is density application.
Coffee parchment drying is the process of reducing the moisture content of the beans from about 55% moisture content after washing to 11 to 10.5% moisture content, which is safe for hulling, storage, and roasting. Skin drying involves rapid removal of surface water on the parchment. It should be completed within the shortest time possible, for example, 3 to 4 hours while stirring continuously. Defective beans should be sorted out since they are easily distinguished during the skin drying and the white stages. However, sorting may continue during the whole drying process. After skin drying, slow drying during the white stage for 2 to 4 days is essential to avoid cracking. Constant stirring also helps to prevent cracking. Ideally, a raised shade cover should be used to allow free air movement, or else, for early morning and evening, spread out the coffee in a thin layer, 1 inch deep, and stir constantly. In the hot part of the day, pile coffee in a ridge 4 to 5 inches deep along the center of the table and stir constantly. Subsequently, drying during other stages should be done gradually and with care to avoid taint development. Coffee parchment should be shaded during the hottest time of the day, for example between 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. In dull weather, the coffee may safely be left uncovered for longer periods.
For the small and medium estate farmers, when after fermentation of their coffee, they can use this type of trays for skin drying and also for the final drying. When the sun is too hot, then these kind of trays are portable. They can remove the trays with their coffee to this kind of a shade. Then in the afternoon, when the weather is conducive for the drying, then they can still transfer that coffee back to the drying area.
Moisture content is normally tested and has been tested traditionally, and people know about this. Coffee, once it is dry, there are two methods that people use here. One of it is take a small amount of coffee, crush it on, between the two hands. You see that the husk will come out and the silver skin will come out. Once the silver skin comes out, it tells you something that coffee is dry, because it's very hard to remove the silver skin when the coffee is not dry. The second one is the same coffee that you have done that, you subject it to biting. You bite a coffee from various corners of the table. Once that coffee is sours, it is over dry. But once it is very hard and pressing down, it has approximately at a moisture content of around 11%. But if it is sours, as experience tells me, it is at a greater, 8 to 9% moisture content. So it is supposed to be hard and not break with a sound. The normal procedure, which I would preferably like every society to adopt, is to buy a moisture meter. The moisture meter will just tell them directly the moisture content at a particular stage, and they are not able to over dry the coffee.
Re-wetting should be avoided at all costs, as this causes growth of molds. Drying beds should be absolutely flat to avoid depressions which lead to uneven drying. No fallen parchment should be collected, as these may introduce earthy flavors. Let us turn to the drying of buni. Buni should be dried on coffee tables or on clean cemented raised surfaces, but not on sisal cloth as it is sometimes done. Coffee harvested on different days should be dried separately. Drying should start immediately after harvesting. Moisture content of dry buni should be at a maximum of 12%. Note that buni should be protected from any contact with water to avoid rewetting. The next most important stage is storage. Dried coffee should be stored in gunny bags on top of wooden pallets at a minimum of 15 centimeters away from the floor and wall. Construction of storage stores ought to meet the recommended designs, which allow for ventilation and good relative humidity, among other prerequisites. Storage of parchment should not exceed 3 months. Prior to the storage, it is necessary to disinfect the store to avoid insect attacks. In addition, chemicals should not be kept in a parchment store. Above all, proper personal hygiene is essential in the handling of stored coffee. Procedural handling of coffee at all stages leads to high retention of quality. Coffee quality can be summed as that which leads to high income for the producer, maximum profit to the dealer, and exemplary pleasure to the consumer. This is derived from good agricultural practices, good manufacturing practices, and good hygiene practices. If all the above parameters are critically observed, coffee quality is assured. Finally, to preserve the environment, remember that coffee waste management is crucial. Such wastes include coffee pulp, mucilage, and wastewater. Solid waste may be composted and recycled back to the farm, while liquid waste should be contained in the seepage tanks. Note that proper care and procedure should be observed at all times if the realization of a good coffee crop is to be guaranteed.
Quality is very important to coffee production, and when now the farmers have done all the farming, primary processing, and then the millers have done their secondary processing, then the coffee is brought to any capping lab for quality assessment. We have two methods. We have the Kenyan method, whereby we consider the raw of the coffee, the roast, and the rica, which is the cup. So when we are doing quality assessment, normally we consider the raw, and in the raw we consider the size of the bean, the color. Then from there we look for the defects, either farm related or primarily processing related. After that, we consider the roast, the type of roast, and the center cut. Then we give it a score. Now, when we come now to the rica, we consider the body and the acidity. Then we give it a score. For example, low is 4, had scored 4, roast has scored 4, and the cup has scored 4. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, divided by 3 forms, which is the raw, the roast, and the rica, is 4. So therefore, quality of this coffee is class 4. For the SCA, that is Specialty Coffee Association of America, we consider the number of attributes in the cup when we are doing the cupping, like fragrance, aroma, acidity, the body. Then we give that cup the overall score, the highest being 90 to 100, which is specialty coffee, 85 to 90, which is premium. Then below 80 is what we call commercial grade. The quality of the coffee affects the prices. For example, when you have class 1 to 3, that are the premium coffees, which fetches a lot of money in our Nairobi Coffee Exchange. While we have class 4 to to 7. Those are the average. Then downward from 7 to 10, well, those are inferior coffees, which fetch very little in our Nairobi, Kenya Coffee Exchange.